Namaste. Welcome to our 43rd talk on the Bhagavad Gita. We're starting the 8th chapter called the Yoga of Imperishable Brahman. So Arjuna speaks to Krishna. O Supreme Spirit, what is Brahman? What is the primal self? What is action? What is the primal being? What is the primal God? Well, we see then what he considered Krishna to be. He understood that he was Purushottama. In fact, that's the word that's translated Supreme Spirit here. But he was not talking to a human being. He was talking to the Supreme Being. He had that awareness. Of course, it is sort of more than the mind can sometimes keep grasping, and so he would often forget. So he, even apologized to Krishna and said, there were times where I acted like you were a human being. But that's all right, because if Krishna took on a human being, a human body, what else could he expect? And anyway, that's the way he wanted to be related to. So then, he asks, O Supreme Spirit, what is Brahman? This is the absolute being. What is the primal self? In other words, the self of the self, the first self before the many come forth, you see. It says in the Upanishad, Brahman said, I am one, may I be many. And so we're part of his own being in a way we can't possibly comprehend. We are the same as him, yet there is a distinction from Brahman, not an absolute difference. And it's good for us to understand there are things we can't understand, but we can dimly get the idea. Sort of like reading in Braille rather than seeing the letters on the page. What is a primal self? What is Brahman? What is this primal self? What is action? Now that's very interesting, because here we are saying what's the primal being, and suddenly what is action? What is karma? What is kriya? What is action? Because you see, everything that is done is ultimately done by God. Because God is the power behind all things. So it's very brilliant of Vyasa to do this. That he's saying, we can think I'm down here, I'm on a very low level, and the great absolute is up there. But that isn't so. Our life is the life of the absolute, and our actions are the actions of the absolute. Therefore, we have an absolute imperative duty to act in that context. That what I do is a divine thing. And of course, evil is only good corrupted. So will we, in a sense, attempt to corrupt this divine power? We can certainly misuse it, or we can neglect it. It's a very serious thing, Far more serious than if you don't do the right thing, you're going to go to hell forever. That is shilly-shally. That's nothing compared to the idea of degrading Brahman, which can't be done. But it's like in Crocodile Dundee, where Crocodile Dundee is unconscious and he meets God, who is played by Charlton Heston. And at one point he says to God, well, you're God. I can't lie to you, can I? And God says, you can try. And so we try. We try the impossible, and that incurs a very serious type of karma. What is the primal being? What is the primal God? What is the underlying primal consciousness? And then what is the infinite consciousness that arises out of that, that actually projects relative being? Or, more exactly, the appearance of relative being. So God has these multi-levels, and we have them too, and that's how we live and how we exist, how we ourselves act. All right. What and in what way is the primal sacrifice, the adi yagya, here in this body? It states in the Gita, it states in Dharma Shastra, yagya is the basis of everything, and everything that exists is a yagya, is a sacrifice, an offering. Meaning every action is ultimately toward God, and therefore is an offering to God. And how are you to be known at the time of death? By the self-controlled ones. Well, we already see that Arjuna had some pretty good idea. He doesn't just say, how will you be born at the time? How will you know it at the time of death? He says, by those who control themselves. So those who have no control, they will never have any knowledge. They will never have any genuine experience. And we have these people that, oh, I don't get caught up in details, and I'm not all involved in little disciplines, and I don't have the idea you've got to be so exact, etc., etc. Fine. Leave them alone, but unlike the nursery rhyme, they will not come home. Just let them stay where they are. But we must be the self-controlled. All right. Sri Bhagavan, the Holy Lord, said, the imperishable is the supreme Brahman. Akshara cannot be corrupted, cannot be lessened, cannot be added to, cannot be altered in any way. That's stability. Its dwelling in each individual body is called the primal self. In other words, the absolute original part of it is God dwelling in this body, in this manifestation. We're all of us avatars. The offering and sacrifice, which causes the genesis and support of beings, is called karma. In other words, karma is the thing that starts the whole drama of evolution going. And that is an act done by us. We were originally simply points of light in the ocean of light. And we intuited, understood that our purpose was expansion of the breadth of our consciousness, and that we would do it by coming into relative existence. If it was innate witness, or if somehow Brahman communicated this to us, that's not indicated. But we understood that Kriya, action, and the first action is will, the willpower, the will to enter into manifestation. And that's the basis, and everything comes from that. It's like being in a place where there's echoes, and just one time you call out, but you hear it repeated over and over again. We, being one, have also made ourselves many through countless incarnations, from the simplest form of existence up to where we are now, and it will go beyond the level of development where we are now. Oh, primal being is perishable existence. In other words, the primal being has become the whole world around us that constantly changes and therefore is perishable. The primal God is the supreme divine being, and I myself am the primal sacrifice, because Krishna is speaking as Ishvara. Ishvara is an emanation, an expansion from the infinite absolute. And by entering into creation and pervading creation, and actually by entering into the state of capacity for creation, and then actually performing creation, which is, of course, a mind intellect process, then Ishvara becomes the primal sacrifice, within which we dwell as little sacrifices, because we understood before we came into relative being what it would entail. And we said, yes, I will. Are there individual jivas that never say, yes, I will? Well, it's quite possible. There are certainly jivas that say, no, I won't, for creation cycle after creation cycle after creation cycle. Then they may say, yes, all right, I will. But Swami Sri Krishna Giriji used to say, leave some questions to explore in infinity. So we can pass on then. At the time of death, he who remembers me while giving up the body attains my being. Of this there is no doubt. It doesn't just mean going forth from the body, the person thinks, oh, I'm God, I'm going to go stand before God, I'm going to be judged by God. No. It means the being which has united its consciousness with God, who is aware of and is aware in and as God, fully, in the fullest degree, to the total capacity the individual is capable of, then that person attains the pure being of God, beyond name, beyond form, beyond coming and going, beyond any duality. So we're back to the point of consciousness. The state of consciousness is everything. The straightening out one's clothes. One straightens out one's inner bodies. That correction and that aiming in the sense of I am that, I'm only that, not like, oh, it's far away, I'm going to go up to the top. There is no top, there is no bottom in infinity. There is no in and out. There is no light and dark. There is no duality. So he who has united his whole being so that he too is Advaita, is non-dual, then he alone awakens in, or arises to, whichever way you want to say it, the very being of infinity. Of this, he says, there is no doubt, because it can't happen. As long as you are in a position where you can go backwards and you can lose it, then you're not in that real state. But when you are yoga yukta, joined to yoga, united to the very state of yoga itself, then there's no doubt you enter that state. It's kind of repetitious, and I know I'm sort of banging away on the drum, but it's so important that we realize this is it. Our consciousness is it, not, oh, I love God. I've always known God existed. I knew somebody that said, I can't remember a time when I didn't love God. Are you kidding me? You're going to tell me that they didn't remember when they were 2 or 3 years old? They didn't love God when they were 2 or 3 years old. But these are the self worshippers. These are the little jack horners. What a good boy am I. That's not a yogi at all. Okay, having said that negative thing, moreover, whatever he fixes his mind on when he gives up the body at the end, to that he goes, always it becomes that, which means you and I've got a choice. We can think of, my goodness, we can think of something less than that. We can think of heaven. We can think of, oh, to be united with such and such from our past. You see, it's like we have infinite possibilities because there are infinite levels of existence. There are not just hundreds of thousands, there are millions of astral worlds. There are millions of these slight gradations of consciousness. And we can go to anyone we decide to set our mind on. That is, we put our mind in that state of vibration and we go to it, which is why japa is so important. If we leave the world saying, oh no, how am I leaving my family behind? Well, we'll come back to this world and our family won't be behind us anymore. But those who can leave saying, Soham, that am I. And in the saying of it, be in the very bhava of it, since that is the bhava of the Absolute, who, the Upanishad tells us, said in the beginning, Soham asmi, I am Soham, then we go there. The japa of Soham puts us in the state of Soham. We awaken into Soham. Only those who practice and those who practice diligently and not with a break, they alone will know what I'm talking about. See, Soham teaches you all about itself and reveals itself to you. A real, true teacher of the not yogi tradition will not tell you everything and will not say, oh, by the way, did you know that you can do such and such and such? No. Soham shows it to you, and if you don't need to know, it won't show you. If you need to know, it will show you. So it's good to be ready and pay attention. Let's say that verse again. It's wonderful. Moreover, whatever he fixes his mind on, or let's say in, by merging consciousness, when he gives up the body at the end, to that he goes, always he becomes that. Therefore, at all times remember me. But it's not just remember the way you and I can remember our first school teacher. It means bring into your consciousness this divine state. The dying thief said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Because someone like Jesus, just remembering someone, they immediately became present to them. This is an important thing to realize. So we alternate with God. God remembers us and brings us into his presence, and we remember God and bring God into our presence. And when we're really good at it and steady at it, then it's no longer God and I. It's just Tat, that. We don't have a name, not even God, and the I is not there with us. All right. With mind made steadfast by yoga, there is no other way. If you're not a yogi, why bother to read the Gita? Why bother to listen to anything I have to say? With mind made steadfast by yoga. We have a lot of people who think they're yogis, and I sit to meditate and they go, and yawn a bit. Then, I think I'll say a little spiritual prayer, and then I'll meditate. Or maybe I'll sing a little devotional song. These people are not yogis. They are just mess around. They're fool arounds. They don't know it because these yoga cults teach them to do this stuff. But sincerity counts for absolutely nothing when you're being taught delusion and falsehood. Okay. With mind made steadfast yoga, which turns not to anything else. And believe me, at the time of death, a lot of things come and say, how about me? How about me? And isn't the devil's tempting us? It's because having played with these toys for so long, we have an affinity with them. We got to have a karma with them. And so we don't have to say, be gone. We just have to say, not you, and stay with Soham. He who meditates on the seer, that is, the one who perceives all, and is living consciously in us, in our inmost being, which we call the heart, the ancient, the primal being, the ruler, the controller of all. Yogis never lose control. It's like, he was overcome with ecstasy. Oh, yes, his devotion to God swept him away. No, that's a person who's in big, big psychological and spiritual trouble. All right. He who meditates on the seer, that primal one, the ruler, subtler than the atom, anu, is the tiniest particle that exists. And this, which is real, is far subtler than that. That is like, if you get a little something in your eye, it feels like it's as big as a boulder. Well, it is as big a boulder in the sense of being blocking your attention and your awareness. So he who meditates on the seer, the ancient, the ruler, subtler than the atom, support of all. In other words, if you don't have spirit consciousness, you don't have a support, and you really are a samsara. You're a wanderer. We all are, or have been. It's not criticizing anybody. Whose form is inconceivable because it's beyond conception, and radiant like the sun. In other words, it's just pure light and beyond darkness. Once you've got there, like you get on a plane in New York, you fly to England. Once you're in England, you don't say, whoops, I slipped in my concentration. I'm back in America. Oh, no, you're in England. This is talking about a permanent state. At the time of death, with mind unmoving, endowed with devotion. Devotion isn't like, oh God, I love you. Bhakti means dedication, absolute dedication. This is what I am doing, and this is where I am going, and this is where I set my will. Shivananda said constantly, devotion is not emotion. Devotion is taking the will and merging it in God. Endowed with devotion and yoga power. We got to develop this along the way. Those who haven't developed this yoga power, well, it can't happen to them. And you do it by practice, 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 not by grace of Guru, not by grace of God, but by your own grace, by having made yourself intent on sadhana. Having made the prana enter Nasikagram at the origin of the nose, they says between the eyebrows, the Ajna chakra, he goes to the divine supreme spirit. In other words, it's a gateway. And he goes out, and according to which chakra you leave your body, you leave your body through, well, that's the world you go to. That's why there are people, when they're dying, they feel they're sinking because their life force is going down, it's going to come out a lower chakra. But the yogi goes to the highest point. And this is it as far as relativity can be. Once you get out of here, then there's more to go to, higher. But this is the only gate to the gate for the Supreme. Having made the prana enter between the eyebrows, he goes to the divine Supreme Spirit. Easier said than done, but it can be done. That which the knowers of the Veda call the eternal, which the ascetics free from passion enter, desiring which they live the life of brahmacharya, that path I shall explain unto you briefly. And I notice, because I talked to you, I've got a little thing telling me how long I've talked. Well, I've gone a few minutes over the time. So tune in next time and find out the exposition of that verse.